How's it going there, guys? It's Comic Legend here, and today we're going to be responding to Lumar's video responding to my good friend SK. Before we get started, there's a lot of things I would like to address first, starting with my beautiful, healthy, and really strong bond slash friendship with my good friend, Edward.
Yeah, we're going with the first half right now. We gotta go topic by topic, not two topics at the same time. Who do you think I am, General fucking Grievous? Goddamn, bro.
But there's even a line in the novelization where the
Looks like a
symbiote
certain
is
someone is
actively...
about to admit he made a bad faith argument. How do you feel about that, SK? How do you feel about that?
But,
I think bad faith actor.
I think you smell bad. I think you smell bad.
I'm not the one
Yeah,
making up plot holes like
even-
Grant Paulson. I think you smell like fucking shit right now, dude.
Yeah,
Talking about
there's,
me smelling bad, you're literally a Grant Paulson right now.
What about you, Liam? You in the background. What are your thoughts
Fuck you.
right now? Or you got nothing?
Alright. My thoughts are, SK, you are on Twitter too much, you're a drama addict, you're fat as fuck, you need to go outside more, you are going to be an exercise ball in a few years. You literally look like a DEI diverse version of Woody from the Toy Story movies. Those are my thoughts.
So moving on from that, I do want to talk about Lumar as a YouTuber. I found Lumar when he made his video critiquing The Boys Season 2, and I thought he made a lot of really good points and actually opened my mind on the show as a whole. Ever since then, I did subscribe to his channel, and I do think overall he makes a lot of fantastic videos with a lot of great points. But sadly, I do think this response to SK was really poorly handled, and I do think he didn't grasp a lot of SK's points or made a lot of poor counter arguments. But ever since I do respect this YouTuber, and he was very cordial to SK with this response video, I'm going to very respectfully counter the arguments in this video. With that being said, let's get into it.
From the start, the movie doesn't make sense. Towards the end of the film, the heroes release S.H.I.E.L.D's database to the world so that Hydra will have no assets or personnel that they can hide from it. Which means that the movie shouldn't have even happened because Tony Stark has already decoded the entire S.H.I.E.L.D. database in the previous film.
Actually, he only decrypted the S.H.I.E.L.D. database present on the helicarrier in relation to their mission regarding the Tesseract, not the files present on the Triskelion. Those two are different locations. The same S.H.I.E.L.D. files aren't just scattered to every base in relation to S.H.I.E.L.D. or Hydra. In fact, the end of Winter Soldier explicitly tells you the opposite.
Fury has released everything to the public. Everything he knows about what we have is worth more than any of them ever knew.
They have files of their work with Loki's scepter in this Hydra base, and they explicitly state that Fury doesn't know about them. He can't access these files because they weren't accessible at the Triskelion. On top of this, why would the Hydra agents randomly feel the need to upload their files on the helicarrier? Why not keep it in the Triskelion, which is Pierce's primary workspace? Isn't that better for avoiding the risk of leaks and maintaining control of these files? I know there's a word for this.
It's called compartmentalization.
Yeah, that.
And yet he doesn't try to inform Fury or Cap about it, and there's no reference or foreshadowing to Hydra being a part of S.H.I.E.L.D. in that movie.
There's no reason for Tony to inform Fury or Cap about information he doesn't have access to.
I think this is a debatable one, with both of us having good points. You could interpret this as Tony just hacking the helicarrier, as it makes little sense to put all of S.H.I.E.L.D's files in the ship's database. In fact, I don't think they would do that. There's also references that not all of Hydra's operations were stored on the main S.H.I.E.L.D. database. However, Tony is a genius who likes to brag about his accomplishments.
Yeah, but Tony being a genius doesn't mean he can just figure out every single secret that the government has hidden from him. He would have to know where to find it.
If Tony just wanted to hack the ship, I feel like his dialogue would have emphasized that. Instead, Tony points out,
I should probably look into that once my decryption program finishes breaking into all of S.H.I.E.L.D's secure files.
Yes, all of S.H.I.E.L.D's files under what Tony would suspect / know. That doesn't mean literally every single file that S.H.I.E.L.D. has, including the ones that are unknown by Nick Fury himself.
this feels like specific wording meant to highlight that he wants to know every possible threat Fury is keeping from them, especially as he doesn't trust him.
I agree, and I bet SK also agrees, that Tony wants to know everything that Fury knows and everything about S.H.I.E.L.D., but the problem is, that doesn't mean he can acquire every single bit of information information that S.H.I.E.L.D. has, especially information that the director himself doesn't have, being that Hydra's under control of this organization. I still don't understand how any of this would equate that he could even possibly know that Hydra is behind any of this. At most, this would only prove that Tony could possibly figure out that Project Insight exists because Fury obviously knows about it. But even then, we see in the movie that Stark Tech is used to help out the project anyways. So this is actually addressed in the movie.
The other caveat is Jarvis. Jarvis is quite possibly the most advanced computer system on the planet at this point, and as we see in Age of Ultron, a heavily destroyed Jarvis that displayed such little activity that everyone thought he was dead, was able to go across the globe, hack into nuclear bunkers, some of the most protected military bases on the planet, and then manage to fight off Ultron so he couldn't nuke us all. I feel like a fully powered Jarvis would be able to hack into all of S.H.I.E.L.D. in 12 hours if he's able to do all that when he's essentially on death's door.
I think the problem with this argument is that you have to use the movie that comes after. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I would like you to show some kind of proof and or feats of Jarvis being able to do anything equivalent to this in the prior movies, because as far as we know, Tony probably just upgraded this AI to the capacity of being able to control nukes after the events of Winter Soldier, and way after the first Avengers where he does the hacking anyways. Also, this would have to imply / assume that he used Jarvis to hack S.H.I.E.L.D. anyways, which we do not know for sure. And also another thing, even if you were right that Jarvis is established to be this good at hacking thanks to the proof shown in Avengers Age of Ultron, I would argue this is an issue with Avengers Age of Ultron's writing and not Winter Soldier, ever since that is the movie after Winter Soldier and the first Avengers that established this.
And in terms of compartmentalization, the point of the leaking of the S.H.I.E.L.D. documents at the end is that you can use the main S.H.I.E.L.D. network to find out more information. For years, everyday people have had the ability to log into databases on the other side of the planet from the comfort of their own home, whether it's for work, banking, security, all sorts of things. Presumably, an advanced organization like S.H.I.E.L.D. also has the ability to access files from other locations as well. It's pointed out that Strucker and his men say that the leak didn't reveal anything from their base, as that information wasn't on the main S.H.I.E.L.D. network. But the fact is, the Avengers proceeded to use the S.H.I.E.L.D. files to hunt down Hydra bases one by one until they reached Strucker's. And they already know that Strucker is here and that he has the scepter, so from one base to another, there would be information regarding that, which is how they know it.
Yeah, but Tony didn't investigate multiple different bases under Hydra and or S.H.I.E.L.D. All that he did is hack one helicarrier to figure out about the secret plans that Nick Fury knows.
My point being, even if Jarvis didn't initially uncover anything in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s main files, it seems there's far too many breadcrumbs leading to Hydra's facilities for this to have remained a secret until the Winter Soldier happened.
I think the issue is, Tony has to suspect something to even find these breadcrumbs to begin with. Tony doesn't think that S.H.I.E.L.D. is under Hydra, and in order to figure this out, you need to manually go to multiple other bases under S.H.I.E.L.D., hack those, just to even have the suspicion to begin with. All that Tony has as a suspicion is what Nick Fury is doing, which he says in the movie itself that he just wants to know everything that Fury knows. He doesn't want to know everything that S.H.I.E.L.D. knows, even things that S.H.I.E.L.D. has hidden from Fury himself. He's looking into Nick Fury specifically, and once that is done, Tony decides to move on and focus on other things.
The directors themselves even mention that this is a glaring issue.
While I think the directors should be attentive to these details, I'd like to note that this was months after the film had been released, so the production wouldn't even be fresh in their minds, and most importantly, they are not the writers of this movie.
No, but they are the directors. They need to understand the movie in order to film it properly. Presumably, they would be going over the script constantly to make sure the sets, actors, and choreography is up to scratch. However, it is possible that they really didn't go too far into the movie to think about that stuff. In which case, fair enough.
I agree 100% with this point. All that I'll simply say is this doesn't really speak to the quality of the movie at all, or the criticism being right. This just speaks to the fact that the directors aren't really that competent. I mean, these are the same guys that directed both Infinity War and Endgame.
Just because Captain America doesn't want to kill people doesn't mean he won't do so if it benefits the mission. He doesn't have a strict no-kill rule like what we see with Spider-Man or Daredevil. This is a hostage situation where Cap needs to be quick and stealthy, so Cap is willing to risk killing someone if it means ensuring the safety of the hostages. That doesn't mean he wants to kill anyone, just that he will for the sake of saving people. There's a difference between choosing not to be a bloodlust killer versus killing off threats to protect others.
Yeah, I know. I never had a problem with him killing. That's what I was pointing out in that scene. My point of contention is he could have just knocked this guy out like he proceeds to do with these other two guards, but instead he went out of his way to kill him. There was no need to kill him. He didn't even know that Cap was there until the last moment.
In the very clip that you are showing right now, the guy's about to pull out a gun and shoot Cap, possibly in the face, and Cap has very little time to react. The most efficient way to get rid of a threat like this is to kick him off board so he cannot shoot you or recover from any other attack. I don't see the issue with Captain America of all people doing this. And remember, SK says, and I agree with them, that Captain America kills if it benefits the mission.
Just because Captain America doesn't want to kill people doesn't mean he won't do so if it benefits the mission.
And the fastest, most efficient option is to kill him. I don't think it is out of character for Captain America to do this, especially in a spur-of-the-moment decision in the heat of combat.
He was completely taken by surprise, but Cap kills him anyway.
I agree he is taken by surprise, and people who are usually surprised will immediately go into attack mode, especially trained killers like this terrorist over here. And in the clip you show, once again, he is reaching out for his gun, and Cap has very little time to react. Could he have done this without killing him? Sure, in an ideal world where Captain America is perfect, but this isn't an ideal world. This is a world where Captain America has to make a quick decision at the moment, and any time for delay could mean his death. And if he dies, the innocent hostages do not get saved.
Immediately following this, there's another guard who is leaning against the rails and is unaware of Cap being there. But instead of just giving a quick sucker punch and knocking him out, Steve chooses to throw him into the stormy sea below, once again drowning someone he could have just knocked unconscious and taken prisoner.
Knocking him off is the quicker option and makes less noise when he falls down. If he just punched him, the others nearby could hear the fall and order a kill on the hostages.
I fail to see how punching him unconscious is the less stealthy option. If he's knocked unconscious, Steve can just lower him to the ground to stop him from clattering to it if he's really worried about noise.
Yes, but slowly and surely, laying someone on the ground after you knock them unconscious takes a lot more time than just knocking them out and throwing them right off the boat. And in a hostage situation like this, every minute counts, and Captain America is in a rush.
If anything, leaving someone awake so they can scream as they fall to their death sounds even riskier for the sake of the mission. But that's what Cap did.
No, that is not what he did. In the clip that you just showed, again, Captain America knocks him unconscious. You can see him hit the guy in the head before he starts flying off the boat.
The goal isn't to stage a situation where the DC police officers kill Nick Fury. They don't care if people know they're not actually police officers. The purpose of this disguise is to deter people from calling the actual police, which would hinder their process. This plan also gives Fury a false sense of security at first.
Something that will very obviously be seen and recorded on the news, possibly even alerting other people in S.H.I.E.L.D. that something is wrong.
Something wrong is a very vague statement. That doesn't mean there are any leads to Hydra. At most, you can conclude that a terrorist organization attempted to have Fury killed and dressed up as police officers to do so. But how does that expose Hydra or any corruption within S.H.I.E.L.D.? There's no leads to that. And something very important that's being neglected here is that Pierce uses this assassination attempt as a way to motivate the Council to reactivate Project Insight as opposed to delaying its production.
I understand using police disguises to stop random onlookers from getting actual police involved. The point is that doing this attempt this publicly is going to get a lot of people involved into questioning who these people are and who hired them.
Yes, but it is a massive stretch for anyone, including people that work for S.H.I.E.L.D., to just assume that this is Hydra, especially that this is Nick Fury that we're talking about. He has made a lot of enemies over the years.
And if any of these questions are answered, it's going to lead straight back to the people that hired them.
Do you have any examples in the movie that prove that they could figure out who hired them?
Just like when people investigated the terrorists at the beginning and found that the trail led back to Fury.
Just because Fury got caught with his terrorists doesn't mean every single time someone is hired by an organization, it will directly lie back to that organization exactly. You need to give us some logical reason as to why an investigation under these police officers committing the assassination attempt would lead to Hydra.
If this had been on a smaller scale, or if they just used the police to distract him and then had the Winter Soldier launch his attack when he's stationary, so it looks like a lone terrorist no one knows how to find is responsible, this would have made more sense.
This criticism is fair. I actually don't know why they didn't just open up with the Winter Soldier and use the police officers as a simple distraction method. Hell, I don't know why they didn't just put the Winter Soldier in one of the police cars anyways, and then just give him that special gun he uses to magnify to the car and blow up Fury initially. This would have been far faster and way cleaner.
So, there are a few things to account for. First of all, this isn't even Bucky's usual attire. As shown in Bucky's other assassinations, Bucky has his usual armor and metal arm exposed. When Bucky shows up on the street, he looks like he's wearing a snowboarder's outfit. Most of his usual attire is covered, so even if people recorded this, you would be left with very vague results.
While he is covering his arm, you can still see some of the metal around his hand, and he has a similar hairstyle like he does in all the other pictures.
Lumar makes another great point here. The hairstyle is a very distinct look for the Winter Soldier, and that metal hand is a really big red flag. I have no idea why they didn't just get him to change up his hairstyle and put on gloves. This would have been much easier to hide his identity.
But setting that aside, there's an even more important factor here. Hydra is days away from the release of Project Insight, the thing that enables them to hold millions of people hostage at a time and have control over the world. So Hydra has even less reasons to be cautious about publicly displaying the Winter Soldier.
So one of the counterpoints that comes up a lot in this video is the idea that Hydra are rushing around to get Project Insight done, and as such no longer care about being secretive if it means the project gets finished. Except that seems to just go completely against how this version of Hydra operates. Pierce has been director of S.H.I.E.L.D. for decades at this point, and Hydra has had a large force inside S.H.I.E.L.D. for a while now, and all of them have managed to operate below suspicion because that's how Zola taught them to be. Even after Zola's death, they have stood by his philosophy of staying secret until you had the power, not before it. I find it weird that a character that is supposed to represent this Hydra's philosophy decides to just go against it right on the verge of victory, allowing the heroes to uncover their plot and ruin their plans.
Alright, there's a lot to go over. Firstly, yes, Hydra is supposed to be secretive, but it is only until they have absolute power. As far as Hydra believes, they have Project Insight, they have control over all those helicarriers, and their major threat, Nick Fury, is dead. So as far as they know, they do have absolute power right now, and they do not think anyone would be capable of stopping them, which is a blind side that this organization has had ever since World War II in the first Captain America movie. And another thing to bring up is very simply that Hydra is planning to reveal themselves at Project Insight anyways, which is only going to take maybe a week at most, and even that is pushing it. They are planning on revealing themselves anyways, so a few characters like Captain America, Falcon, and Black Widow are definitely not enough to defeat all of S.H.I.E.L.D./Hydra under Hydra's own perspective.
Who chooses to use a grenade launcher to very loudly blow up a car. Then, instead of quickly neutralizing the target and leaving, he chooses to slowly walk towards his target to finish him off, allowing Fury to escape.
I don't know about you, but if I'm walking towards a bunch of smoke, I'd rather walk my way through instead of running there. It's not a smart idea to run towards an area where you can't see what's on the other side. Slower movement gives you more time to react to anything. Imagine if Fury planted a bomb nearby. If you're running towards the area, you would have to put more effort into running the other way versus if you walked there instead. On top of this, it's very reasonable to assume that Fury is heavily injured and couldn't make it very far from where he was, assuming he's even conscious. The purpose of walking to Fury was to simply confirm the kill. Seeing the body helps.
My main point here is the slow reaction time of the Winter Soldier. He shouldn't be dramatically standing around waiting for the car to stop before attacking Fury. As soon as the explosion goes off and the car starts to fly out of control, he should be running up to it. And we've seen how fast he can move, so that wouldn't be an issue.
You are not addressing SK's point though. SK's point is that if he starts running to the car, he would have less time to react to Nick Fury shooting him and or trying to blow him up.
Or if he doesn't want to get close to the car, he can just hit it with a few more explosives.
I think this point is reasonable, but I would like to assume in good faith that the reason he doesn't blow up the truck is because he wants to find the body of Nick Fury to confirm the kill, because we do know this is a super spy universe where you could get out of crazy situations like this, and Fury's the best at this business. So it's reasonable enough that he wouldn't want to cause a fiery explosion where he cannot find the body and confirm the kill to Hydra.
So Fury escapes, tries to warn Steve, gets shot, gives him the files. Steve pursues the Winter Soldier until he magically vanishes.
I mean, there's a variety of ways he could have escaped while Steve was preoccupied with catching his shield and running all the way to the edge, such as entering a window or turning to any of these streets.
It's not like Steve spends a minute struggling with his shield. It's thrown at him, he catches it, and then a few seconds later he reaches the edge and he's just gone. Don't get me wrong, it's not a massive issue. I expect the Winter Soldier to have plans to escape. I just think they probably could have shown us a more condensed street with more alleys instead of this wide open space.
The Winter Soldier right now is in a big, bustling city landscape where there is tons of areas to hide and or blend in. He could hide through the window under the building that they are at right now. He could hide around the corner of the building where Cap isn't looking at the moment and then proceed to climb down to an area where Cap will not be able to find him. He could go to the sewers, he could hide into a car, or very simply, we could just assume, ever since he is really good at stealth and a master assassin, he is just not where Cap is looking at the moment through this perspective shot that you were showing, which is very much possible, especially that he has more than just a few seconds to get away from him.
Nat pointing out how bad of an idea this was is meant to show that this is a deliberate character flaw for Cap. Cap is not experienced in espionage.
I don't think you need to be a top secret super spy to understand that putting something in a place that can be visibly viewed and accessed by anyone is the worst place to hide anything. Literally anywhere else would have been better than this. This doesn't make me think that Steve is less experienced. This makes me think he's a fucking moron.
I don't think Steve is an idiot for this. I think Steve hiding it in this machine is because of the fact that it is such a strange idea for anyone to do that most people wouldn't suspect to look there anyways. I think he is banking on the idea that this is such an unlikely place that anyone would hide anything that Hydra would not suspect to look there in the first place.
Now, the alternative mention was that he maybe could have put it in the bathroom, but if Steve excuses himself to go to the bathroom, then that could set off suspicion. Imagine if some Hydra agents decided to go to the bathroom and search any potential hiding places because they're suspicious that Steve might have went to the bathroom to hide something. That's a pretty big risk there.
Steve doesn't necessarily need to put it in the bathroom, just literally anywhere that is hidden. And if you want to talk about people keeping an eye on him in case he tries to hide something, he hides it in this vending machine when an entire task force, led by Rumlow, is currently behind him waiting for him to accompany them to S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yes, but once again, in the visual that you are showing, at this moment, they are not looking at him.
The bathroom excuse isn't the only thing he could say to cover his tracks, by the way. Rumlow just saw him arguing with Nat. He could wander off and then come back saying he was trying to talk to her, and that would be a equally plausible explanation for disappearing out of their view for a minute.
Or alternatively, they could suspect that this is staged so that Captain America could be hiding something and either follow him or check out the area that they might have gone.
I'm also not sure how Natasha knew to investigate the vending machine in the first place either, considering that she had left before Steve tried to hide anything.
Well, I assume she looked to the last place she saw Steve before he was called in for questioning.
By that logic, Hydra should also be looking at the last place he was and seeing if he hid anything, considering they stood right there, and they presumably want to find out if Fury told or gave him anything.
Yes, but using your logic, if the vending machine is such a bad hiding place, how would Black Widow not just find it anyways? So this kind of goes both ways.
He meets up with Natasha, and they decide to try and decrypt the files and find out what's going on. They do this by randomly wandering into an Apple store, putting the files into a basic laptop that would absolutely have the bare minimum on it, and definitely wouldn't have any spy software used to decrypt files.
The spy software is on an external hard drive. This is commonly what external hard drives are used for, storing data outside of your computers, softwares included. Oftentimes, people do this with video editing, so that it doesn't take up too much space on their computer.
And then somehow manage to hack these files that Fury couldn't get into in less than 9 minutes.
Black Widow is especially skilled with computers. She directly implies this in the scene.
You can upload programs onto thumb drives and memory sticks, but your computer is going to run it very slowly because it's not a system hardwired into the computer. It's a file that the computer has to constantly be reading and running, and then reading and running any changes and media uploaded to it. At least that's how I've found things when trying to use Premiere Pro that way. I will give some leeway in the case that the software might be advanced enough they can just work through those problems, but I still think it would take longer than 10 minutes for these files to be decrypted on hardware inferior to whatever was being used at S.H.I.E.L.D.
If you're willing to accept the idea that this hard drive is advanced enough to bypass a lot of the issues that you have stated already, why is it an issue that it takes 10 minutes? This is super spy fictional technology that you're talking about.
Unfortunately, because the movie needs these two to survive, the patient, crafty, cunning man who wants these two dead decides to alert them that something is wrong and that they're about to die.
Zola gave them a very short amount of time to react and even locked the doors so they couldn't leave. He only tells them they're going to die as a means of gloating, not as a means of warning them to react. They barely had time to react and were lucky to even have survived this without getting caught.
My point here is that Zola shouldn't have given them any reaction at all, full stop. He understands the value of patience and secrecy more than anyone. Him gloating isn't the problem. He is very happy to rub it into Cap's face that Hydra has infiltrated the SHIELD organization and is behind the deaths of several people. The problem I have is he alerts them to an active weapon coming to take them out when they are completely unaware.
Yeah, that's because Zola believes that there is no way that Captain America can survive this. That's why he gloats about it.
He should have just stalled them for as long as possible, not warn them about anything.
Ideally, yes, but ever since he believes that Captain America can't get out of this because he locked any kind of exit he could possibly use to escape this attack, he believes there is no point. Captain America is absolutely doomed and he wants to rub it in his face.
So they eventually escape the vehicle and Steve is hit by a grenade launcher. And I get that he is a superhero and all that, but shouldn't all of this at least injure him? Because he shows back up later absolutely no worse for wear.
I mean, the footage right there shows him injured. It's not severe, but he blocked the shot with his shield and has super durability.
Fair enough, he does struggle getting up. I don't know, I just feel like someone who is affected by pistol bullets should have a bit more of a reaction to all of this.
There is a difference between piercing damage versus blunt force trauma, and also, even then, when he took the bullets, he was able to handle it much better than a normal human could, which is very impressive. Setting aside that Captain America is a superhuman that can withstand far more damage than the average man, the shield took most of the blunt force trauma of this attack anyways.
On top of this, the highly specialized Hydra agents choose to walk very slowly clustered in a group with no cover, spraying all their ammo at absolutely nothing.
Running creates more instability if you want to shoot at people. Walking is generally considered better for shooting. If anything, they'd have a higher chance of missing shots if they did run.
I'm not saying they need to be running or even jogging towards them, but you can go quicker than this without making things significantly harder on yourself.
How so?
On top of this, they don't try and use cover.
They are not using cover because they are giving suppression fire so that the Winter Soldier can get in close because he is the one with the grenade launcher. Taking cover will just waste time, especially when they're going to be constantly shooting anyways, which requires you to not be in cover.
Or take turns firing so others can advance quicker.
They are all firing so that the Winter Soldier could advance quicker because he's the one with the explosive.
Or go along the sides to flank them.
Flanking them would not be as fast as the strategy that they are doing right now. Like I keep saying before, they are giving suppression fire so that the Winter Soldier can advance with his grenade launcher and blow them up. Currently, the good guys are hiding behind cars, which is, I don't know, fun fact, something that is really easy to blow up.
Despite shooting at him a solid 2 minutes ago, every single one of these guys just forgets about Sam.
Because Sam ran away and hid to make it seem like he was evacuating, so that he could get a sneak attack while they're distracted.
Unless they saw him running all the way down to the other end of the highway, they should know that he's hiding around somewhere and should be watching out for him.
I'll say this is a fair point, actually. I don't know why the enemies would not be vigilant over Sam, even though Sam would clearly be near this area and would definitely want to help his friends.
Who manages to sneak behind and kill one of the guys that randomly chose to not jump down when the rest of the group did.
It's a form of security so that they're being watched while they go down.
Yes, it makes sense to cover your teammates while they're in the middle of rappelling, but he's waiting until just now to actually start getting his gear in place.
Because, shown in the visual in your video again, in order for him to get his gear in place, he would have to look away from his teammates that could be shot when they are rappelling down, and this could waste precious time, especially when the enemies that they're trying to kill are fleeing the scene.
Once again, no one decides to shoot Steve in the legs. They all choose to shoot at the giant indestructible shield instead.
Miniguns are not easy to aim with due to their heavy weight and massive recoil. It's also worth considering that the shooter just lost a few of his guys for unknown reasons and is clearly stressed about Captain America sprinting at him, which could factor into sloppier aim. And to mitigate the chances of being shot at,
I'm not just talking about the minigun guy. There's several other people with assault rifles that have sights on them that keep choosing to shoot his shield instead of his legs, long enough for Sam to kill them.
Okay, firstly, the guy that you showed on screen basically died immediately when he started shooting at Cap because Sam had his back. And two, shooting the legs is not that easy, especially that Captain America is sprinting at full speed. And three, most trained operatives with guns are usually trained to shoot at center mass, so it is an instinct for these trained soldiers to shoot center mass first, so it's reasonable that the soldier would try and shoot center mass as a reflex and then gradually try and shoot the legs. But before he had time to do that, as we see once again, Sam shot him down.
Captain America made a conscious effort to crouch so that his legs weren't super exposed. So it's not like it's this open and easy target.
He hides his upper body behind the shield so the minigun guy would have a hard time to hit him from his higher angle, correct? But his legs are still pretty exposed, so the people on the same level should have a easier time shooting them considering how exposed they are.
I'll point this out one more time. Captain America is sprinting at full speed, so his legs are not easy to hit, especially that he's a super soldier that can run almost as fast as a speeding car.
More Hydra agents show up, but are unable to kill them as they are in public, and so decide to load them up into a prisoner transport and take them away from the public eye. Then, instead of just killing them in the transport, they decide to take them all the way to some abandoned alley to have them killed.
That's an entirely logical set of events. Why kill them in the truck when this creates a mess in their SHIELD transport vehicles? Wouldn't it be strange if they showed up to the Triskelion with blood all over themselves and the vehicle? Doesn't it make more sense to handle their killings in a secret area in a more clean and controlled manner?
Well, you've been arguing this whole time that Hydra cares less and less about maintaining their secrecy as they're about to win.
Yes, but unnecessarily putting their men in trouble with the police and or the news is not helpful to the organization at all. There was a news chopper watching them once they were able to capture Steve in the first place. So if they killed them in an area that would be public, this would drive suspicion for far more people than the assassination to Fury ever could. Another point worth driving home is the unnecessariness of it all. I don't understand why they have to kill Captain America so soon or so quickly. They're not really in any rush to do so anyways. They've captured Captain America, and it is much more efficient and more productive to kill him in an area where people publicly won't see him, especially that this is a known Avenger and would cause a lot of suspicion to go down on SHIELD and Hydra, especially people like Iron Man who could be watching the news. It is much smarter to kill him in an area that is not public.
I don't know why killing the main threats of their operation would be something they would hesitate to do when it's the last thing they need to do to win.
It is definitely not the last thing to do to win. They have the Avengers to deal with, one of them being Tony Stark, mind you, and multiple different countries that would definitely fight against them, even with the Project Insight plan. I don't understand this argument. If Captain America died, and if he died publicly, his friends would be more suspicious of this act and would look into it, and that would lead to a greater threat to Hydra. Someone like Iron Man dealing with Project Insight is far more dangerous than keeping Captain America alive a few minutes longer.
On top of this, if they execute everyone in one truck, why does the truck and the personnel in it need to go back? Just keep them all in a secure location to watch the bodies and begin cleanup, while Rumlow goes back to deceiving everyone until the helicarrier launches. And after that point, there's nothing anyone can do. I think telling everyone that the group escaped and keeping this truck out of the way for a day isn't going to arouse that much suspicion.
I would say this point's fair, but it doesn't really affect the film too much because even if they were planning to kill them in the truck once they get to the hiding spot, they kind of escape anyways thanks to the help of Maria Hill, so I don't really think this would affect much, but I do think it's a fair point nonetheless.
They open the door and there's a hole in the transport, showing that they used the cutting device Fury used earlier. There's two scenarios here and neither of them make sense. The first one is that they cut a hole as they were on their way to the location. This doesn't make sense because as soon as they drop down they would be run over by the vehicles behind them, or at least the vehicles behind them would alert the others that they're escaping. The second scenario is that they escaped as soon as the transport stopped. This means that over the course of 15 seconds, they cut a hole in the transport, dropped down, cut a hole in the concrete, and then everyone somehow managed to drop down before the doors opened.
Yeah, thankfully red lights exist to stop traffic, which they would have used to their benefit at some point during the transport.
Personally, I don't think they would have time to get everyone out in the space of time it would take to get the lights to go green, especially as Nat is injured.
You are severely underestimating how long red lights can stay red for. They can at least stay red for 30 seconds at most, and that is more than enough time to get everyone to escape, especially that it is established that these devices used to cut holes through concrete can get you out of situations in just a few seconds, like shown prior when Nick Fury was trying to get away from the Winter Soldier. He got out of that situation after being blown up in only like a minute at most, and even that's highballing it.
On top of this, do you think these guys are waiting for red lights? These fuckers should be running through them like most law enforcement do in emergencies.
But they are caught in the news helicopters not being in an emergency, they have already apprehended the suspect, and it is flat out illegal for law enforcement to run red lights and drive recklessly after they have already arrested someone and put them in their transport vehicle. So this would be caught on the news and would make Hydra look really bad.
On top of this, you would also have all of the noise and bright flashes associated with cutting.
Considering that Hill can discuss her plan with the people in this room in the truck, it's safe to assume that it's soundproofed. Also, I don't know what the brightness would have done considering nobody who wasn't in on the plan was in that part of the truck, and this was being done on the bottom area of the vehicle.
The inside of the truck might be covered in soundproof, but if they're cutting through the outside layer, they're going to be making noise and light coming out of the holes they create.
Yeah, sure, that's fair, but how fast is it to create holes with that special device that Fury and Hill use? Because as far as we know, it could take a few seconds to create a hole big and dense enough to escape, which is all the time that they need.
I understand his body wouldn't need as much oxygen if he's literally just lying on a table asleep, but 1 beat a minute would mean basically no oxygen is going to his brain.
This depends on how long he was in that condition for. This was only done temporarily to convince Hydra that he was dead after the doctors tried to save him. For all we know, this drug only applied for 20 minutes out of the 2 days this plotline takes place over.
Well, most people develop brain damage by going 2 or 3 minutes without oxygen.
Alright, firstly, that's an appeal to reality. As far as we know, humans in this world can withstand not having oxygen to the brain a little bit longer, but even if you do not want to agree to that, he is using a special super fictional science drug device given to him by a super secret agency with advanced technology, weapons, and chemicals. So him being able to perform this with magic drugs that is well established to be under the resources that S.H.I.E.L.D. can have is not that unbelievable in this universe.
Which, on top of his already catastrophic blood loss and organ failures, would cause his brain cells to die. But no, apparently he is completely fine and suffers no side effects after this.
Because it was temporary and he would have had plenty of time for his injuries to be treated, which he didn't even fully recover from.
2 days is nowhere near enough time to recover from catastrophic organ failure and blood loss.
Once again, appeal to reality. We do not know how fast recovery is for humans in this universe. And as far as we know, humans in this universe have been able to perform far more impressive feats than what is realistic. And once again, if you do not want to agree to that, he is under doctors and researchers that have advanced medical science by their side. This is a super secret organization with some of the best resources and technology known to man. So him recovering much faster than what is normal is not that crazy.
The plan starts by the group taking control of the communication center and broadcasting a message trying to get the helicarrier launch stopped, which I think is problematic for 2 reasons. The first is that they now lose the element of surprise.
Some of the best well-trained agents and combat professionals are on the helicarrier right now and are all over S.H.I.E.L.D. And Captain America is in bright blue and red. There is no way he's going to be able to have the quote-unquote element of surprise anyway, especially that time is of the essence and stealth requires patience.
The moment they step on the helicarriers, they're going to be noticed anyway, so why not put the word out so that the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents know what they're dealing with and give them the choice to either fight for his mission or to escape to safety. It is highly important to alert people about the fact he's about to engage in combat in this area, especially for civilian safety. In fact, it's highly important for Cap to try clearing his name, because good S.H.I.E.L.D. agents could try to attack him, since S.H.I.E.L.D. was sent on a manhunt against Captain America, based on a series of lies. Cap is going to have more obstacles if he doesn't speak up about this.
It's established that a lot of the more important members of S.H.I.E.L.D., especially the task forces, are in fact Hydra agents, and you would assume that Pierce would want to place most of his forces in the helicarriers to assume control of them and neutralize any resistance that might arise once Insight is launched. The only people we see near the helicarriers that aren't Hydra are these guards here.
With those guards there, wouldn't they be a benefit if they knew what was going on and helped Cap in his mission to stop Project Insight? I don't get the issue here. It is perfectly reasonable to get Captain America to rise a bunch of the good people of S.H.I.E.L.D. up to the challenge to save the city, if not the entire world.
And it seems like most of the other personnel on them, whether it be the soldiers and pilots that Sam and Steve fight, to the commanding officers in charge of the weapons, are part of Hydra. I think trying to infiltrate and take control of one of these helicarriers, even if it means possibly endangering the few non-Hydra agents on them, would be a lot easier if you attack it by surprise when the base isn't on high alert because you engaged a civil war throughout S.H.I.E.L.D.
So you think it's a better plan for the guy in bright red and blue to try and sneak into the most heavily guarded facility on the planet, and also not tell anyone about this so he can risk hurting innocent people as well? I don't see why this is a better strategy. The guy is sticking out like a sore thumb if he tries to sneak in anywhere, and it's bright daylight outside. Stealth is just not the option here.
Also, Maria Hill is Fury's right hand for a reason. I'm sure she has the ability to take control of this center by herself and play a pre-recorded message to help Steve persuade the actual S.H.I.E.L.D. agents to fight for him.
She's one of Fury's top agents because of her intelligence and tactical mind, but that doesn't mean she is some kind of super spy or super soldier like Black Widow or Captain America, so either of them making sure that she could safely get to where she needs to be is a much smarter option than hoping she can handle it on her own, especially that there's a super soldier bad guy in the facility with them, the Winter Soldier.
We see in the movie that all they need to do is plug in their own drives into the computer network to take control. They somehow managed to sneak into S.H.I.E.L.D. to reach the communication center. So I don't understand how, alongside using the digital face technology, they wouldn't be able to sneak into the helicarriers to take control of at least one of them before someone notices something is amiss.
This room can access security cameras. They would have been noticed eventually. This also goes back to what I said earlier regarding why it was so important for Cap to clear his name.
Again, I think all of this could have been done by Hill. If they can't access the helicarriers without getting spotted, they can at least get as close as possible so they get there quicker once Hill takes control so they can get on the helicarriers before Hydra's forces mobilize.
Once again, this is the most secure facility on the entire planet, and having Maria Hill go on her own is nothing but an unnecessary risk to her and the mission, especially that there is a known assassin/super soldier that works under Hydra, so her being escorted by both Black Widow and Captain America is nothing but a smart precaution.
The heroes could have come up with a plan to evacuate the building and get the majority of the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents out, but Cap chooses to be as blunt as possible.
Because they're not going to evacuate the building because of what Captain America told them, unless he specifically justifies why they should trust him instead of pursuing their manhunt.
I never said for Cap to give a message telling people to evacuate, I just said to evacuate the building. Stage a small explosion near the compound, hack into the security systems and tell people there's a chemical leak, literally anything to get the non-combat personnel out the building.
Yes, but alternatively, Captain America convincing these people to help him save the world would benefit everyone.
I'm not saying they have many options, I'm not saying they're guaranteed to get everyone out, or even that it'll work in the first place. But if you're going to announce your presence and get Hydra on alert anyways, you might as well do it in a way that gets as many good guys out of the conflict as possible.
Or you can simply make a speech to convince tons of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents to fight on your side to save the entire world from the evil forces of Hydra.
So, the group begins to take over the helicarriers, fully aware that they are facing up against automatic weapons, big open spaces, and long-distance combat. Can someone explain to me why Steve doesn't bother to bring a gun with him? He has no problem with killing, and he has no problem with using guns, yet for some reason he chooses to rush into combat scenarios without a gun when he is most likely facing targets at long range.
Firstly, he doesn't need a gun when he has his athleticism and his shield.
He can use his shield, sure, but he can't use his shield for long range and be protected at the same time. Using a gun allows him to keep himself protected and remove targets at a distance. One of my main criticisms of these fight scenes is they have to keep having these soldiers run up to him to shoot him instead of doing it at a distance, because if they don't, he can't eliminate them, because if he moves his shield to throw it, he'll get shot. At least when it comes to fighting the big groups, an issue that's removed entirely if he just uses a gun, which he's fine with doing.
This is a pretty good argument. I don't see why Captain America wouldn't bring a gun with him, especially that we know that this version is okay with using guns, and especially that he is in a firefight as we speak. The only defense I can think of is just that he didn't have a gun to bring anyways, and the only few armed weapons that they can carry he gave to his teammates, but even that doesn't really hold that much water. So I'll say this one's overall fair, but ultimately not that big of a deal because Captain America is perfectly capable without a firearm anyways, especially that he has an indestructible vibranium shield that can block bullets.
Second of all, because he doesn't need a gun, he doesn't have to risk shooting at people that are potentially on his side who would also be on the battlefield.
I think the punches that can send fully grown men wearing full tactical gear flying several feet away from from him are going to do just as much damage as bullets are.
Okay, firstly, once again, appeal to reality. And also, even ignoring that, being hit so hard that you go flying does not do as much damage as getting shot at. Once you get shot, it goes through your organs and it makes you slowly bleed out while you're suffering, unless you're shot in the head or something. It pierces through your body and does permanent damage to you. Getting hit really hard and flying in the air could do damage, but not to the level of getting shot at or getting shot at multiple times. So that's just such a wild point to me.
And if he has a gun, he can still use his shield to take down non-armored combatants while using his gun against people wearing bullet-resistant clothing.
Wait, let me get this straight. So you think hitting someone so hard that they go flying isn't a good counter-argument to preventing unnecessary casualties to people that are possibly innocent, but you think it's a better idea for him to either use his shield, which is made out of vibranium, or shoot people that have bullet-resistant clothing instead? How does this fix the issue of him possibly hurting innocent shield agents?
Plus, guns make it easier to reveal your location and make it more difficult to sneak around.
I think being a 6'2" hulking mass of muscle in a blue jumpsuit, carrying a bright red, white and blue shield, running around through a conflict zone is what's going to make it harder for him to sneak around.
Yeah, I agree with that. Also, SK agrees with that. So why did you say earlier in this video that he should sneak into this facility or try and catch them by surprise?
I think a few more bullets going off in an active combat zone isn't going to change the dynamic too much.
In fairness, enemy combatants seeing muzzle flashes is going to be a massive problem when you don't want to be seen.
And again, if he needs to be stealthy and get the jump on people, he can still use his shield as well. This isn't an either-or situation. He can have both.
I think this is a good point. I side with this completely. I do think he could have at least brought a gun, even if he doesn't have to use it or should use it in certain combat situations. So I'll give him props for this. Decent point.
And it's only thanks to the fact that they only shoot his shield and keep running up to him that he's able to advance throughout the helicarriers.
The area is filled with smoke.
The smoke isn't that thick at all.
That's for the audience. We still want to see the action, but in canon, the smoke is clearly more thick than it looks, so that they can't shoot Captain America. This is a filmmaking technique so that the audience can see what the characters can't. This is like complaining that a pitch dark scene in a movie isn't actually pitch dark because we can see the characters in it.
And on top of that, you could tell by the silhouette of the person in the smoke that this is Cap due to his shield. Unless the smoke is supposed to be thicker than this, in which case that's still a production issue with the film.
No, it's not. Once again, film directors understand that audiences want to see action even if the characters themselves can't see it.
And these guys likely want to avoid friendly fire, so they're more cautious in their approach instead of rushing straight into shooting.
Moving from your position and advancing towards the target in this small, cramped area is only going to increase the chances of friendly fire.
They cannot tell if that's the target or not because of how thick the smoke is in canon, so they wouldn't even know for sure if that's Captain America. And no, getting in close to have a point-blank shot on the enemy would lessen the impact of friendly fire being a possibility, because you're going to be only directly shooting at your target.
As Steve is fighting on one helicarrier, Falcon starts to make his way to the other. And instead of just landing on it and doing his job, he chooses to fly over the helicarrier, activating its anti-air weapons which begin to track him.
He didn't land on the helicarrier because of the weapons guarding it. That's the point of him flying around it. He's trying to dodge these shots.
I mean, in this shot we see the edge of the helicarrier. He could have just landed on it or fly closer to its runway, but instead he keeps his distance from it and keeps flying upwards, and then gains the attention of the guns.
I would say overall this is a fair point as well, because I don't really see any guns that could have shot Falcon until he flew a little bit too high up, so I'll give you this one.
They'd shoot at him to ensure he doesn't land.
He approached them from the ground. He only gets targeted by them because he goes above the runway of the helicarrier. If he went from the ground and just landed on the edge of this one, the only way these guns would be able to shoot at him is if they had the capacity to aim straight down and fire a shot into their own ship.
Yes, but shown by this picture here, if he tried to go from under the helicarrier, he would have been shot by the guns under, which are actually more precise guns.
Leaping out of a window and into a helicopter flown by Fury. And for some reason, Nat is now fully dressed up in her tactical gear and doesn't seem to be suffering any after effects of a taser that has been knocking people unconscious throughout all these movies.
Yeah, I imagine she'd have some of her tactical gear underneath the disguise, then put more of it on after the mission in case she needs to engage in combat later to help Steve.
I'm not disputing whether she should bring a spare set of gear with her, I just think it's a bit strange she would waste time getting changed, considering the amount of time they have to try and evacuate and rescue Sam.
Yes, but that time that she's spending getting changed is valuable, because if she is in her combat gear, she would not be able to help anyone in any combat situation, which is very likely to arise in this situation, so she should be ready.
Also, it is realistically possible for people to get up after being hit with a taser. She was knocked unconscious at first, but got up afterwards.
That's true, but you think there would be some after effects from it? Maybe she's a bit groggy and struggles longer to help Sam, something like that? Instead, she appears to have just gotten up, gotten changed into her tactical gear, and then gotten in the helicopter to rescue Sam, and she's perfectly fine.
So, again, appeal to reality, and again, there's another way to explain this. She has combat gear on her, and we would assume that she had this combat gear under the dress when she got tased. This combat gear, I would assume, resistant to electricity, at least somewhat.
Towards the end of the film, we see Fury help Nat release the files for S.H.I.E.L.D. all over the internet, which would essentially destroy the organisation and reveal any allies and resources he has for others to snatch up for themselves. And for the life of me, I have no idea why he does this. He doesn't want S.H.I.E.L.D. to go down. Hell, he still doesn't really have an ethical problem with Project Insight up towards the start of the final battle.
Yeah, he doesn't want S.H.I.E.L.D. to go down, but he believes it should after he was seriously challenged by Cap and forced to reflect on his work over the years.
S.H.I.E.L.D.'s been compromised, you said so yourself. Hydra grew right under your nose and nobody noticed.
I noticed.
How many paid the price before you did?
Fury keeps telling himself that he had it under control, but the fact of the matter is that Hydra corrupted it under his nose and he acted far too late. And Fury's ideology for Project Insight enabled Hydra's plans in the third act. This was a project that Fury pushed for.
After New York, I convinced the World Security Council we needed a quantum surge in threat analysis. For once, we're way ahead of the curve.
Why make me head of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Because you were the best and the most ruthless person I ever met. Our enemies are your enemies, Dave. Disorder, war. You didn't ask, you just did what had to be done. You have the courage to take it?
No, I have the courage not to.
He seemingly wants to remove Hydra and retake control of S.H.I.E.L.D., but then Steve gives him a pep talk and apparently everything good that S.H.I.E.L.D. has done is worthless and he's just going to take down his entire organization.
That's not what Steve was saying. Steve was saying that S.H.I.E.L.D. has been corrupted to the core, so it needs to be taken down. That doesn't mean the best of S.H.I.E.L.D., who helped do good for the world, shouldn't be able to help. Nat is still an Avenger, Hawkeye is still an Avenger, and Fury returns in Age of Ultron with a S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier with a team of old S.H.I.E.L.D. agents that he knew were trustworthy.
This is what S.H.I.E.L.D.'s supposed to be.
Instead of just looking up at the Hydra files and using S.H.I.E.L.D.'s resources to hunt them down.
The purpose of taking down S.H.I.E.L.D. is so they're not in a position of power to abuse, especially during an investigation of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Randomly choosing to destroy his entire life's work because the movie says he has to.
Because as it stands right now, it's bringing more harm than good. It's like how Iron Man destroyed his life's work because it brought more harm than good.
Fury acknowledges that Hydra infiltrated the organization and manipulated certain tragedies and Project Insight to gain more power. But S.H.I.E.L.D. is a massive organisation that Fury believes has a lot of good people in it and overall has done more good than harm. The main issue with the organisation seems to be with the leadership, as Pierce was able to become the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. and twist it into something it's not. So instead of just burning it to the ground, why not take control and twist it into the thing it's supposed to be?
You can do that by burning it to the ground and rebuilding it by scratch, so that the whole infrastructure is not controlled by Hydra anymore. I don't see why this is contradictory to Nick Fury's goals in life. He could expose S.H.I.E.L.D., destroy it and burn it to the ground, and then start it anew with his own ideals in place.
As pointed out, one helicarrier with a few dozen S.H.I.E.L.D. agents is able to greatly turn the tide of the situation during the final battle of Sokovia. Imagine how he could have helped future events if he had the resources instead of just throwing them away and exposing his agents to the public.
Those loss of resources are worth it though, because all those agents he's exposing could possibly be agents under Hydra, and that is worth exposing. These are Nazi terrorists that are in his organization and could manipulate it or gain power in it. It is better to burn it down and start anew, even if that means losing resources, if it means literal Nazis can't control your organization in any facet.
Seriously, I've got no idea where he used to be on the right side and then he has to deal with the fact that the people he's working for might not be as moral as he is. Sentiment for this film has come from. In the first Avenger, Steve does what is morally right and stands against his government when he thinks they're wrong. In the Avengers, Steve does what what is morally right and stands against the government when he thinks they're wrong. In this film, Steve does what is morally right and stands against the government when he thinks they're wrong.
The difference is that in Winter Soldier, Steve doesn't know what is morally right at first. That's where his character arc starts to progress. If Steve were to give up on S.H.I.E.L.D., that means giving up on Peggy's legacy and the work she did to facilitate S.H.I.E.L.D.'s contributions to the world. That's not an easy decision for him to make when he stays attached to his past and struggles to move forward with the world.
I mean, I get the film is trying to push the moral greyness onto Steve, but most of the things he's vocally against are things pretty much black and white. Having a weapon system that can wipe out 1 million people in a short period of time, and Nazis abusing their power in the government aren't moral conundrums to struggle against.
I agree that it's not a hard moral conundrum, but what's interesting is how it challenges Steve's perception on good versus evil. It's not as black and white as he realized. Back in those other movies, even when he did stand up for the government either didn't punish him harshly, like in the first Captain America movie, or in the first Avengers movie, he saw that Fury was morally in the wrong, but that his heart was in the right place. This time, he has to realize that evil can come from anywhere, not just the Nazis and not just the Germans, or labels such as S.H.I.E.L.D. or Hydra. They can be one and the same, and they can be influenced by evil ideals, and ideals can come from anywhere, making the world more gray than he realized. That's the challenge that's presented to Steve morally. And he figures out how to overcome this challenge by learning to inspire others to do what is right and moral, because the best way to counter bad ideals is to present better ideals, ideals that side with good, morality, and freedom. And that's what Captain America strongly believes in, and that's what he learns to use as a weapon against evil for the coming future. It isn't just about punching Nazis anymore, it's about inspiring better ideas to counter the evil ideas that the world presents to people.
And yes, Peggy still helped to create S.H.I.E.L.D. and build a legacy that was designed to do good. She wanted to create a better world just as much as Steve did. But it's a bit difficult to take this moral quandary seriously when Steve's two options are stop Hydra from world domination, or not stop the Nazis because I don't want to hurt my ex-girlfriend's legacy.
Yes, but learning how to honor her legacy while also taking down everything she's built is what makes this journey interesting for me. Captain America wants to inspire people with the ideals that him and Peggy Carter hold strongly, but he knows he can't do that through S.H.I.E.L.D. anymore, so he has to learn how to adapt in this new environment known as the modern day. He used to be a World War II soldier where right was right and wrong was wrong. Americans were good because they didn't side with the Nazis who wanted to oppress and enslave tons of people, but now the world is gray. The people that are perceived good and built by good people are now evil, and he has to learn how to stand on his 2 feet and tell people what is right in a world that is much more confused. That is what's interesting, not, oh, I want to stop the Nazis, but I don't want to hurt my girlfriend's feelings. I think this is kind of just an oversimplification of his journey.
Had this film not made the villainous faction Hydra, and instead made them be just a more ruthless part of the government that still believes it's holding up S.H.I.E.L.D.'s ideals, this might have worked better for his character.
I think this is a great point, and one that I hold strongly as well. It being Hydra does take away the nuance of this message. The moral complexity that could be argued with security versus freedom is absolutely destroyed if you tell me that security is just the Nazis, so we don't really have to talk about it.
The Council doesn't speak for this movie's messaging as a whole. Cap, the main character, is saying that nobody should have that power, not even Fury.
Just because the main hero stands against something, that doesn't mean their morality is the only correct one. Here is the chance for Nat, Fury, and the other board members to argue against Pierce's philosophy on using Project Insight. And the only argument that seems to come up is that wiping out millions of people is fine as long as the right person is in charge. This scene could have been the chance for other opinions around Project Insight to be discussed.
Yeah, but in your sentence prior, you literally just said that someone said that it is okay to use Project Insight as long as it's not under the control of Nazis. Shouldn't that be another opinion that is technically being discussed?
It's the exact same with the opening, where Cap just goes around randomly killing who he wants and knocking others unconscious, making us question why some of them deserved to die and others didn't.
Cap doesn't believe they deserve to die, he just believed the risk was worth taking to save the other people. Obviously, there can be a discussion on whether or not Cap should make extra efforts not to kill people, but that's not the focus of how this film touches upon the topic of freedom versus security.
But my main point with those killings is that they were were unnecessary. Cap could use the same amount of effort that he used to kill them to knock them unconscious. A great scene of Cap choosing to knock out someone instead of kill them is the scene immediately after he decides to throw someone to their death when he could have knocked them out. He fights these guards and one of them nearly reaches the alarm. If Cap had killed him here, I would have understood, as that would jeopardize lives, but he instead pins his hand and then knocks him out.
We've already went over most of these examples anyways, but to just talk about the knife point where he used the throwing knife to pin someone's hand, I'm assuming the reason he didn't kill that guy is because he had more time to actually process the information and he wasn't in an active combat encounter, because he just finished the fight and this guy was reaching for the alarm. He had more than enough time to react and make the best decision possible. To put it simply, Captain America doesn't exactly go out of his way to not kill, but if he has a clear-cut opportunity to spare someone's life, he will take it.
So if Cap is willing to let this man who could have failed the whole mission live, why did he kill the random guard who was just stood by himself when he could have just knocked him out and moved on?
The answer to this question is pretty simple. Both actions are not time-consuming at all, but the thing that you requested would be time-consuming. If Captain America decided to knock out the guy near the boat while he is undercover and not detected yet, he would have to punch him in the head, make sure his body falls down nice and quietly, and then continue running in a time-consuming mission. Throwing a knife at someone's hand and quickly kicking them in the face in the middle of an active fight is not the same thing. He is already doing something that's fast and efficient while also being able to spare a life, versus your example, which would take time while there's hostages and every minute counts.
This was my point in linking his actions to Project Insight. Cap believes that you shouldn't kill unless you have to, and that Project Insight is bad because it gives certain people the decision to completely eliminate threats based purely on their judgment. And he then proceeds to kill some and let others live based purely on his judgment instead of keeping a consistent standard.
No, because every example you've shown so far is him either killing someone because he only has a second to decide in the middle of an active combat encounter, which is killing under a necessary means, or it is him killing because he is in a mission where it's either them or the hostages in a time-consuming mission. This mission is where every minute counts. There are hostages, these are armed terrorists, and any mistake could mean death to him or innocence. This is why he is willing to risk killing people or killing them outright in the middle of an active combat zone. This is what soldiers do. To put it simply, Captain America is not deciding who gets to live or die. He is in a situation where that opportunity to spare lives is taken away from him because he is in an active combat zone where he has to make split-second decisions.
Overall, I'm going to hold on to my statement that I don't think this plot is very good, but I appreciate SK taking the time to go through it and defending his perspective on the film.
And overall, I am not fully convinced with most of your counter arguments to SK, but I will say I do respect you putting in the effort to counter his points anyways, and I respect that you were very cordial through all of this, and I hope I've presented the same level of respect to you in this response video. Overall, I don't think this video is very good with the arguments presented, but I do think the video has a lot of value when it comes to respectful discourse on YouTube, and I do respect this guy, and I hope everyone subscribes to him. Just like how you guys should subscribe to me and all of League Entertainment. Have a wonderful day, guys. Oh, and SK? Go fuck yourself.